Alright, so someone asked me to take a look at Vivien Leigh, who was an iconic film actress in the golden age of Hollywood. I think probably most famous for Gone with the Wind. It's the only thing I've seen her in anyway. You know, looking at this face, it is a very feminine looking face to me. A definite oval shape. Not a wide gap between the nose and the mouth. Not a wide mouth, pretty feminine looking lip shape. The pointed chin. Quite closely spaced eyes. A small neck. Here you can see that she's clearly got a curve to her lower spine. The shape of the leg down here looks like a gradual female curve. These look like small feet to me. Short forearms. I mean, next to this, I think this is Laurence Olivier, but her skull is much smaller. He's got a defined brow ridge, a strong jawline, larger ear, larger nose, wider spaced deep-set eyes, a wider mouth with smaller lips. He's got a cleft chin and a strong chin as well, and a defined Adam's apple. A straight-looking shape to the body, and he just also looks much larger overall than this person. So these two people do look very much like the gender they present as. Now you can see clearly that she's got an hourglass figure, a small kind of rib cage, and then the hips are very wide and defined. The fashion of the day was shoulder pads, which I'm sure was used to disguise the appearance of a handful of trannies in the mainstream media at the time. But I do think in those days there were far fewer of the gender-inverted people, and there were a number of biological males and females. You look at his totally straight legs and straight torso, broad shoulders, and compared to her, the curve of her legs, and, you know, she's just as much smaller, slighter person overall. You can also tell that he has hips that are narrower than his shoulders. I mean, also you could certainly fit 3 skull sizes on his shoulders here. His body line is straight down, and also there is a difference in the kind of foot placement and weight that men and women walk. And you'll typically see men walking with their legs side by side more, whereas women's legs will tend to kind of come one in front of the other a bit more. So you can see the difference even in the way they walk. Just there is a drastic difference between these two physiques and everything about these two people. This kind of elegant, soft-looking hand with tapered female fingertips. There's no defined brow ridge here. She's got quite a strong facial structure, which was, popular in the day. But the thing is, it's not a male facial structure, it's a strong female-looking structure. Don't have any sharp angles. There's nothing squared off, there's no gauntness. You know, this, to me, is a very convincing female face. You know, as a little child, I would say this looks like a little girl. Just kind of a pudgy, serene little girl to me. Now here they have some kind of corsets they're using for the outfits in the show, but they aren't anywhere near as restrictive as actual corsets worn in the past would have been. And it's not altering the body line like corsets of the day would have, because corsets of the day would kind of cause the pelvis to tilt forward more, but here you can tell she's got a clearly female curve to the back. She's also got pretty short-looking arms, and her forehead is a straight-up shape. Again, the strong jaw, but there's not a kind of sharp look to it, which you'd expect of a male with a similarly strong structure. When she's aged, she just looks like a natural woman having aged. You know, when people age, their nose and ears will continue to grow, and the kind of cartilage will droop a bit, and as such, things will lengthen and look a bit bigger. But, you know, she's still got a very kind of delicate female appearance to her features. This is a correct kind of aged female-looking neck. We don't see anything strange in there that you'd expect in a male neck. Photo of her with her mother, who, you know, some people will probably say that looks like a tranny. I personally don't think it does. This is someone that looks to me like someone with a strong facial structure, but I don't know, there's still an overall kind of softness and a female balance to it. The mouth isn't really wide. The eyes are fairly wide set, but you're not having a big, you know, kind of brow ridge or really pronounced cheekbones or anything. I think this is just a strong facial structure on a woman. She's got the kind of small hands and fairly narrow sloping shoulders as well. I do believe Vivien Leigh was born in she was born sometime in the 1910s, I believe. So there wouldn't have been the same kind of surgery options available to the previous generation. So I don't think they would have had very sophisticated facial surgery options available to this generation, if we're talking about generational gender inversion cultists. So, you know, I'm inclined to think this is a real woman because she doesn't have any strange male traits that shouldn't be going on. And here you can see the little girl kind of a long swan neck kind of slope. And I mean, this just looks like a kind of pretty little girl face to me. She always has this kind of long swan neck appearance. You know, some girls will have that look when they have particularly narrow sloping shoulders. It's like a very kind of long, pronounced slope just that continues all the way up to, you know, a small neck and a gradual enlargement down here. Strong facial structure, but definite female softness over top of it. You know, the gap between the nose and the mouth does seem a little longer here. The lips are also, you can tell the lipstick has been applied past the actual line of the lips, so the mouth appears a little bigger than it is. I noticed they actually did this fairly often, changed the shape of the lips through lipstick use back then, and I think that was probably one of the many makeup techniques they did to disguise the trannies they had amongst them, by kind of altering the natural females' faces to kind of coordinate more with the trannies' faces. But I mean here, this rounded head, and there's no defined brow ridge. The brow bones are small and delicate like in a female skull. There's this incline as well that you often see on females. Incline from the chin down to the neck. Even after having aged, we're not seeing scary old man hands. I've noticed some of the MTFs, particularly when they age, their hands just kind of, they just don't cooperate with the estrogen and kind of get pretty gnarly, but you know, these look like very female hands to me still. Again, the face just comes across very, very female. That skull shape, I think you'd be hard-pressed to do a lot of these convincing facial surgery techniques that we now have. I just don't think they had as many options with medicine back then. They had some things they could do, but, you know, this is far too sophisticated. And the face just looks completely natural to me. This doesn't look like a face that's had a knife put to it. There's just a balance and a kind of brightness to features that gets thrown off when people do any kind of procedures, and normally it's pretty easy to see. Again, as mentioned, even on thin women you'll often have this kind of incline from the chin down to the neck, because there's softness in the face, because estrogen makes people retain fat. So even in a slender person, particularly on the face and around the jaw, women will still have this kind of softness. Unless a woman is severely, severely unhealthy, she'll typically still have softness in the face. Here she's kind of tilting the pelvis forward a bit, but you can still clearly see that the curve of the back comes into where she's got the waist indentation, and it also curves out below that point. So she's got a gradual dual curve to the back, which looks very female. Again, there's a kind of softness to the cheeks and the face that looks very conventionally female. Again, very kind of slight shoulders, short arms, delicate wrists, you know, the delicate bone structure, nothing really jutting out and poking out, even though she's a very slender person. A little bit older here, you can, you know, tilting back like this, you can see a little bit of her trachea, It doesn't look really strange to me. Again, with the gradual kind of curve to the legs, it looks a lot more female than male. The skull being overall much smaller than this man's skull next to her, which is consistent with her being female and him being male. Her hands much smaller than his. His are much sturdier and wider, kind of looking, the fingers and the joints and everything. Some distinct differences between males and females in that area. Oh yes, and her knees just look very soft. Her joints don't have any kind of bony, pronounced looks to them. And again, another child photo. Even got the kind of sloping neck look as a little girl. There's just such a kind of female energy here. Little boys kind of have a lot more of a kind of sunny, bright, energetic look to them typically. She's got the female kind of gentle glow to her, even at this young age. Same thing here, kind of knock-kneed little girl. It's a kind of cute, pudgy little face. Not sure if this is actually her, but this doesn't look like we've got any kind of figure modifier underneath this, and so it looks very much like this is just a completely natural female hourglass figure. Again, this person is very, very thin, and she did have mental problems in her life. I know she had bipolar disorder, and I'm not sure exactly the things she suffered from. But mental disorders and women being thin do often kind of go hand in hand. But anyway, even at this small size, you're still seeing a softness to the joints, and you can clearly see we've got a wide female Q angle here. There's just continual curves along here. There's nothing fake about it. It's continual. And the rib cage and torso look consistently small, as you'd expect on a female. Again, the softness around the jaw, in the face, and the neck appears long in this shot because, she does have a fairly long neck. That's also because her shoulders are so sloping that it takes a long time for them to slope up to the neck. But the neck is small, and you're not seeing anything strained in it. And you can tell the gradual shoulder slope comes up quite high. And again, the delicate bone structure. And again, looking at her side by side with this person, smaller skull, a heavier kind of brow and brow ridge, no equivalent here. All features more pronounced and broad on this person, not on this person, wide mouth, larger nose, small mouth, smaller nose. His eyes are still wider set than hers, square jaw, and even with a strong facial structure, she's just got a softness to it. Obviously this photo has been kind of retouched and had color added to it, but, you can still see the underlying bone structure, and the male hands compared to, well, you can't see them here, but we've seen them before. They look female. These are really small shoulders. You definitely couldn't fit 3 head widths onto these shoulders. As mentioned, she's got a quite strong facial structure, but it still comes across as overwhelmingly female to me. The long neck with the gradually sloping shoulders. And here, as well, you can see that where the waist indents is where we see the change in the slope of the back. So the dual curve up here, and the extension going down to the behind. To me, the arms look a little bit longer in this shot, and the hands a little bit bigger. It could be a perspective thing, because yeah, they look small again here. And again, you're never seeing anything strange in her neck. Just a very fundamentally female-looking face. Oh, and female digit ratio as well. Another comparison of the sloping brow of this man, the large ear, the kind of rugged appearance and features compared to her. She's got a softness to her. Look how much smaller her hands are than these man hands, and her feet look quite small too. And you can tell this isn't kind of padding or anything. This is actually the kind of broad shape of the female hips and behind. and a clear waist indentation up there, as well as fairly narrow looking shoulders up there. I mean, again, no brow ridge, strong bone structure, but no gauntness, nothing jutting. Small hands, delicate wrists, small shoulders, and all the same here, seeing all the same traits again. The rounded skull shape, the soft face shape, pointed chin, the gradually sloping shoulders. Even on a thin person, there's nothing jutting and bony, just, you can kind of see the collarbones, but not sticking out, and she looks very fine-boned overall. Again, color added and doubtless some editing, but the dimensions of this face do look female to me. Again, there is a fair gap between the nose and the mouth, but still, the overall length of the face is not overlong. It's not a masculine face, it's just not, slight. Again, the forehead that is not sloped, it's a straight-up forehead, the delicate nose. Again, she's got a strong facial structure, but there's a softness to gradual inclines. Here's the daughter she had when she was younger. I feel inclined to believe that's a girl. I mean, it just looks very much like a girl to me. And if there's no gender inversion going on in this generation, then I would be inclined to believe that she's also female and actually gave birth to her. Later in her life, she did have a miscarriage, is the story. But, that actually is fairly believable for someone who's got quite a low level of body fat and is a very stressed person with mental problems, Those kind of factors can add in and kind of add a lot of stress to a body, and, it's a lot of women do miscarry, so. Anyway, this is, I think, Laurence Olivier again, and he's not her father. She met him later. But yeah, just the main differences in this whole face that looks so masculine. A big masculine skull compared to this head, with the straight forehead, the slope here, the softness here, just a very female appearance to this person. Again, I mean, just look between those two faces, and this one looks extremely masculine, and this one looks extremely feminine. With all of these shots where you can see her neck, you'd expect to see something off now and again, but, you don't. And here as well you can see the curve of the back, the dual curve, coming from above and below. Pretty short arms. Again, the pretty small hands. Legs looking quite long in comparison to the torso. Feet looking small. I mean, looking at the facial traits and the bodily traits, she's looking like a girl, but, also look at the eyes. Doesn't this just have a kind of gentle glow? Doesn't her energy seem fundamentally female? To me, it sure seems that way. And the same thing here, I don't see any kind of burning projected male energy here. All I'm seeing is a softer female energy. Again, all of the same facial features that have been pointed out, and it's consistent in every shot. When not from a downward angle, the neck doesn't look quite as long. It's a small neck, small shoulders. Again, you can't fit 3 skull sizes on these shoulders. Delicate bone structure. The small neck, the female slope, the small torso, the short arms, the elbows at this point. No bones jutting out anywhere. No strong bone structure, which is defined by the lighting here, but still there's no gauntness. You can tell there's a gradual kind of curve, even with the strong bone structure underlying the flesh of the face. The forearms look very short. The hands look very small, with kind of delicate tapered female fingers. There's nothing bony or jutting about the joints, even though this is a very thin person. And even with the kind of ubiquitous padded shoulders in the outfits of the era, they still look like narrow shoulders that you could not fit 3 skull sizes onto. Sloping shoulders. Nothing strange in the neck. Female facial traits as mentioned. And the shoulders are clearly not as wide as the hips here. Defined waist up here. definite hourglass figure. Again, that kind of long sloping swan neck, his narrow shoulders, the high narrow waist, the small torso. Again, very thin person, but no short arms, just as they should be on a go. Again, strong facial structure, but there's no jutting brow bones, just a gradual slope to the forehead. Through some of these time periods, they would draw these eyebrows on in a kind of strange height. It does create a more of a pronounced look here, but it's not a brow coming out. It's just the shape of the head overall. Again, strong bone structure, but there's no gauntness, even on a thin woman. Straight up and down forehead, softness to the jaw, nothing jutting here. Short arms, both the upper arm and the forearm. Hands looking smaller than his hands. Skull looking smaller than his skull. You can tell there's a waist indentation that comes in there. And wider hips. So yes, either they somehow managed to have the most convincing gender-inverted women and men back in those days, or they just had a more equal number of gender-inverted people as well as natural gendered people. My inclination is to believe the latter. It does seem to me that in earlier years there were a greater proportion of biological males and females in the media. There were definitely some transgendered ones as well, and you can see them if you look at their traits, but there is a difference. There's always a difference between the people who are gender inverted and the natural ones. And if you just say they're all gender inverted, then you're going to get confused about what the actual natural gender markers of real genders are. Because to me, this face and this body of this person are completely consistent with a female face and a female body. So, to me, the most rational conclusion I can come to when I'm seeing someone that fits all of the female gender markers that I can think of and measure, I would be inclined to say that person is a female. To me, that's just logic. I would rather use my eyes than my imagination, because there is a difference. When you see a gender-inverted person, there is evidence, there are markers to them that let you tell that they're different, that there's something off. But nothing looks off about this person to me. From dimensions, measurements, features, to energy, this person seems extremely female. So I'm inclined to say that Vivien Leigh is a biological woman, and that's that.